Welcome everyone to yaylive, the loyalty podcast for direct-to-consumer brands. So we are here to help brands navigate the new loyalty playbook in order to build a long-lasting and successful brand. And today we welcome Sebastian, the founder of Myrqvist, a handcrafted shoe brand ready to disrupt the traditional business model by selling direct-to-consumer. And direct-to-consumer is more particularly disruptive when we talk about selling classy handcrafted shoes, right? So in this episode, we're going to look back at the start of Myrqvist, discuss what has been key to the brand's success, and more particularly, what have been the main drivers to Myrqvist customers' loyalty. But to start with, Sebastian, would you like to give us a very quick introduction about yourself and how you came up with the idea of creating Myrqvist?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me here. My name is Sebastian and I'm the founder of Myrqvist, as you said. I'm born and raised in Stockholm, 28 years old. And the idea of Myrqvist came to me when I was at university. At the time I was studying business or economics, to be exact, in the UK. And my idea at the time was to go into finance or banking and do that type of career that some of my friends now are doing in London. But I think that I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. And as a side project while I was studying, I ran a small online store for shoe care accessories. So this was before Myrqvist.
Okay.
And I've always been quite interested in menswear and footwear and craftsmanship. So I think those two passions of mine intersected, and the actual idea for Myrqvist came out of a bit of frustration that I found it was quite difficult to find high quality footwear at a good price point. So I researched a bit and looked into the production cost and materials that go into making high quality footwear, and I realized that it should be possible to bring down the price to the consumer quite a lot, and the biggest markup comes at the retail stage. So I figured that if I was able to sell the shoes directly to consumer, I could bring down the price about half compared to my close competitors. So yeah, that's basically the idea of Myrqvist.
Okay, so very, very business driven. Yeah. But did you hear about the direct to consumer brand model before you thought about that, or did this thought came to your mind by your research? That's, I think, very interesting.
No, I think at the time, I had known about some of the early DTC brands, such as what they're called, the eyeglasses in America, Warby Parker, for example, and Allbirds doing.
Yeah, Allbirds.
So I knew that it was quite an up and coming industry that was a proven business model, so to speak. But I didn't know exactly how to do it. So in the beginning, it was a lot of experimenting, so to say.
Yeah. Because how long ago did you start the brand now?
We launched with a Kickstarter campaign in 2016. That was in April, and then we started selling direct to consumer by the end of that year. So in December 2016. So yeah, now it's exactly 5 years. Yeah.
And did you see this, I would say ecosystem evolving a lot during that time? Because maybe in 2016 that was I would not say the beginning, but now it's way more direct to consumer brands, way more tool accessible. How did you feel about the space evolving in that industry?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we've seen a dramatic shift just in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
For the time I've been doing this. In the beginning it was quite new, and you really had to convince the consumer why this makes sense. A lot of people would not necessarily trust you. They thought this doesn't make sense, how could it be this cheap? And that was kind of a worry that I had. I didn't want to put a cheap stamp on my brand, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I think now our generation and also older and younger people are quite comfortable with the idea of a direct to consumer. There are a lot of other brands driving the whole market forward across different industries, that people do realize that, okay, it makes sense. You do not need to pay a huge markup just to be able to go to a physical shop and buy the product.
Yeah.
So I think obviously that also brings more competition because there are other players now doing a similar thing. But as a whole, I think it's a positive change because more people are willing and are kind of accepting this direct-to-consumer business model.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's beneficial for the customer to have like super good product, very good quality, but of course at like maybe half the price that what you can buy in the store on high street. But actually, I think what's very interesting in your brand is like the category, of course, that you're addressing, because this type of, as you say, like product, if you think about it, it's more like, like your banking friend in London, right? Who buy this type of product. So they actually have a lot of money. But what about like younger crowd? You actually see like, who is your like ideal customer? Like, is it like actually younger people, or do you also see like actually more like 40 plus men turning into like this direct to consumer model?
Well, we do actually have quite a wide spectrum of customers, so ranging from like students who are just 18 years old. They're gonna graduate and they need the first pair of like high quality footwear. But we also do like we've had people who are close to 100 years old coming into our physical shop. So, I mean, we have a physical shop, so we probably reach like a slightly different crowd there. But I would say that our core target group is probably around like 30 years old. And but as I said, we do cater to most different, like as long as you're a man, you need footwear and you have two legs, then you could be a customer of ours.
Okay, that's great. But what about your physical store? Actually, when did you open it, and how do you see that maybe like helping you out actually building the brand? I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah, so we actually we started out with a physical store quite early on our journey. So we had a small one on Grev Turegatan in Stockholm. They were opened up in November 2017, so that was just 1 year after we started. And now we had shifted to a larger store on Jakobsbergsgatan, which is like in the fashion district, so to speak, of Stockholm. And I think having a physical presence has really helped our brand to create like loyalty and trust to the general brand. Even if you're a customer from let's say America, you probably don't have the opportunity to fly over to Stockholm and go to our store. But just the knowledge of us having a physical store in the central like shopping district of Stockholm adds credibility to the brand, and people can trust it. If they go onto our Instagram page or our website, they can see, oh, they actually have a physical store. This is not a bullshit company online that was started yesterday that I don't know. Like,
yeah, that's very interesting.
So I think it's having a physical store is a sign of satisfied customers, because if you don't have satisfied returning customers, you wouldn't be able to afford a physical store.
Yeah, of course. But do you think this is very specific to your sort of like brand category, product category, or do you think that would apply for any direct-to-consumer brand?
I mean, I think it could apply to any brand or any type of product. But of course, the higher price point you have of your product, like it's a more important factor. Because our average basket value is, around 200 euros or something like that. And that's quite a big, decision for someone to make online. If you're buying a t-shirt or a light bulb, you probably don't need that kind of trust in the same degree as you need when you make a 200 euro purchase. But then also there are other benefits, such as like some customers are quite appreciative of the fact that they can come to our store, try the shoes, and then maybe buy more online later.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask, like, how do you go about like the main, I would say, like maybe hurdle to sell shoes online is the sizing. And how people like feel safe about the size. So how do you go about that? Do you have like any tricks? How do you go about like a return policy? How do you help them find the right size? Do you have any advice there?
Yeah, I mean, especially for footwear, and especially again for our type of footwear, because it's quite different from trainers or sneakers, which are typically more soft, and the exact size doesn't matter as much. Sizing is a problem that across the industry everyone is struggling with. So I think we do have quite a lot of good ways of tackling that issue. Obviously, we offer free returns so that people can try the shoes at home and easily exchange them if they like to. But we also make sure, of course, to provide the best information that we can beforehand on the website. So we try not to do too sophisticated like digital tools such as like scanning or measurement, because you don't want to create like a barrier, like a technical barrier for the customer to figure out their size. But what we do focus more is to compare our sizes with other brands that people might have at home. So a typical man probably owns a pair of Adidas or Nike, and if they can look what size they have in those, they can go onto our website and scroll down a chart and see, okay, I have this size in Nike, then I should probably have this size in Myrqvist.
Okay. Because, I mean, to me as a consumer, what I see is like even like sizing sometimes is not consistent between the same brand. And I think that is probably coming from the fact that some brands, big brands, and I'm thinking actually like maybe Nike have like different suppliers, which then means like maybe a 37 in this pair of shoe is not the same than in this other pair of shoe. But I guess in your case, since I think you have only one like supplier, then when a customer has basically found the size that they need at Myrqvist, then they can buy any other pair of shoe in the same size, right?
Yeah, pretty much. We do have different lasts on our shoes, so some, like, they all do not fit exactly the same, but we try to convey that as clearly as possible on our website. And then typically when our customers buy dress shoes, they have bought other dress shoes before. So not Nikes or so on, but like from Crockett & Jones or Loke or whatever. And then they can more closely find the exact corresponding size. But then we also have one thing that we work with, and it's the post-purchase sizing experience. So once you've received the footwear to your home, not everyone understands how they're supposed to fit.
Okay.
Because high quality dress shoes are typically quite stiff in the beginning. Mm-hmm. It's like hard leather, and you need to break them in. And some people tend to be a bit scared because they feel like uncomfortable the first time you wear them, but then after you've used them like 5 to 10 times, they become like molded after your foot. So that's an important message that we convey once they have received the order.
So how do you do that? You send them like personalized email for that, or?
Well, and also physical.
Okay.
In
the box.
Yeah, in the box. And there are certain like things that you can look at. For example, if the shoe fits lengthwise, it's typically fine because on the width it will adjust.
Okay.
But if it's like too short, the shoe won't expand on the length.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Okay. No, but we actually see more and more brands actually saying that, okay, basically a customer, does not really decide to do the purchase when they actually click buy on the website, but actually when they decide to keep the product at home. So I think it's very interesting to see that you are investing time and, efforts on that part, because we actually see, and it's the case for other products, that when basically the customer receives a product but doesn't really know how to go about it, maybe they will just return it, but actually they just didn't know how to use it or how it will evolve with time. So I think it's super interesting. But do you see like many customers now like buying 2 sizes just to make sure that they have the right one, or how do you see that in your customer behavior?
Yeah, we do. It differs a lot based on geography.
Okay.
So in some countries like Germany, for example,
it's very common,
it's quite common that they buy even 3 or 4 sizes and then return all but one that they keep. And given the high basket value, the cost of return is not like relatively that high as if you were to like sell a t-shirt or whatever.
Of course, yeah.
So for us in the end, it's better if a customer actually keeps one pair, and even though they have to return a few of them.
Yeah. And do you actually also see, because we hear that from some brand that, like what we were discussing before, that actually customers who return product are more likely to place new orders? Have you looked at trends like that, or not really yet?
Well, I think if you include exchanges in that as well, it makes sense that people who buy a product or 2 and return and then buy a new one, they end up finding the right fit or the right color or whatever the preference is, and that makes sense that then they end up a happy customer if they're comfortable with the returning process. rather than having a customer who would buy a product and might not be super happy because it might be slightly too small, but then can't be bothered by returning it.
Yeah.
So it's paramount of importance to have a convenient returning process that doesn't scare the customer off to return back to the business.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I see, like, in general, like, there is a big shift in the industry from acquisition to retention, and I think we're touching that here. But I mean, in your case, since it's, as you said, like, quite, pricey product and not something that you buy every day, and you also work on very qualitative products so that people can basically, wear them for 10 years and maybe like, so how do you go about retention? Do you have like any tricks? Is it something that you work actively on, and what would be like your maybe advice for other founders who might be listening to us?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say that like we're profitable on each transaction, even if it's a new customer or returning one. So I know there are some businesses out there that like make a loss on purpose on the first transaction just to acquire the customer, and then focus on only being profitable on later purchases.
Yeah,
that's not how we do it.
That's very interesting.
But of course, we value very highly returning customers, because once you have acquired one customer, they know their size and fit, and then they're more likely to make a new purchase at a lower transaction acquisition cost, so to speak. And what we do to retain the customers is first and foremost, if you look at the core, it's really the product and the brand. It doesn't really matter how like technical you do everything. If you don't have a good product or a nice brand, people won't emotionally connect to the business.
Yeah.
And behind every data point, there's a human decision, So having a great product and a great brand that people really would like to come back to is the biggest factor, I would say. Then on top of that, we, as you said before, we sell a product that's supposed to last for like 10 years or more. So it's not that you buy a new pair of handcrafted leather shoes every month. So we have to work in other ways to make sure that customers come back. And one way of doing that we've done is have add-on sales. We sell socks, shoe care equipment, but we also widen our range of footwear. So maybe someone buys a pair of boots, and then half a year later they need a pair of like Oxfords for the office. We started with doing some sneakers. We have more casual boots now, like the hiking boots I'm wearing today. So we try to offer pretty much every type of footwear within our typical customers' shoe wardrobe, so to speak.
Okay, yeah, so basically offering more products to basically bring more recurring customers is basically how you go about it, more like the long term. But at the very beginning, you were very focused on handcrafted shoes, and maybe that helped you like build the brand, because I think what was very interesting in what you said before is like the product and the brand. So how would you say, like, what were like your best tricks on like how to build a successful brand? If you would like say 3 things that someone who would like build an online business now should focus on to build a very, very strong brand, what would that be?
Well, I think that having a great product, it's really the number one, because that's the core of the business. That is what you're selling in the end. And then secondly, I would say creating a good brand, because it's quite difficult at a later stage to change the brand. Like obviously every brand evolves, and but it's difficult to make a complete U-turn on the brand. So if you kind of like go out and create like a cheap vibe around a brand, it's difficult to become a luxury brand after that, or the other way around. So it's important to have a strategic idea of how your brand is going to be from the start. And then third, I would say, working more with data and analytics is something that comes at a later stage, but it's also very important. And I probably wish we would have done that from an earlier stage, given looking back now at the 5 years that's passed.
Okay, but maybe can we just deep dive a little bit more on that last one? Like, what would you say like is very important to look at when it comes to data from the very beginning? What are like maybe 2-3 KPIs, or what is it like you wish you would have looked at more before?
Well, first of all, just make sure that you collect the correct data from your customers. So as many data points as you can about the customer gives you knowledge about how you're going to reach new customers.
Oh yeah.
But also how you can retain those.
Yeah, but do you mean like you already work with like sort of like cohort analysis or things like that to then like acquire new customer and predict better how much revenue we'll get, or do you refer to something else?
Well, to be honest, as I said before, we have only been around for 5 years, and from the beginning we done a product that's quite not a high frequent purchase, right? So when you do like a cohort analysis for our type of product, you have to add in quite a lot of assumptions to really look at the lifetime value, and you can draw those assumptions based on other like industry data about the footwear market in general. So yeah, we do have cohort analysis, but it's also like an added-on model with assumptions, basically.
Okay. But maybe that takes us to the last topic I wanted to discuss a bit with you, because that might be interesting for some of our auditors, brand founder. Like you did like successfully raise money, and that I think is something that is very interesting in the fact that you were saying that you were actually profitable from every purchase, which is not the case for a lot of brands who actually need to fundraise just like to acquire and sustain the brand. So I think it might have been like a very different approach during your fundraising process. So maybe can you share a little bit like about why you did fundraise, and how was like why did you like what sort of like the key success factors? Why did you managed to like do this very good fundraising from the beginning?
Well, I think it's very important to be profitable, at least at some level. I think if you're going to grow fast, you're probably going to, have phases where you're not profitable on the last line, so to speak. But if you're at least profitable on after marketing expenses and before accounting for your overhead and fixed cost, it makes a lot of difference in the eyes of the investor. But then it creates like a long-term trust in a business. But even if you are profitable and you want to grow quickly, you're going to need working capital. Yeah. And the banks are typically not going to, be that friendly to you in the beginning. So you're going to need some type of investment if you're going to grow quickly and buy inventory to provide the growth that you're trying to achieve. Like before we took in investors, we actually proved that we could grow we could sustain 3-digit growth without capital investment and also retain profitability. So I think that was quite appealing for our investors. And now you can see a lot of different brands and businesses that are purposely taking on a lot of capital with a high burn rate, and I don't think necessarily that's a good long-term strategy, because if you don't sustain that growth and you're still burning a lot, you're gonna be out on very thin ice, so to speak, if that day comes when your growth is stagnating, and then your investors might not be backing you again.
Yeah, no, but I think it's like the overall, trend in the industry that we see that there is a lot of focus now on retention more than an acquisition like it was before, because we see a lot of direct-to-consumer brands struggling to reach profitability. So I think it's a lot about that, and of course, like then in the eyes of the investor long term. But yeah, thank you very much, Sebastian, for joining us today and sharing your experience in e-commerce and the Myrqvist journey.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I think it was really interesting to get your take on the significance of building a great brand and product to drive customer loyalty. I must say I didn't expect to talk so much about returns today, actually. But for those of you who don't know about Yellow, we help brands win customer loyalty one return at a time with a return solution which is beautifully designed and easy to use. And we are super proud to work with trailblazing brands like Myrqvist. thank you again for joining today, Sebastian, and have a great one.